Is Josh Heupel's offense too gimmicky? Why does this come up now? Well, it comes up because you have a handful of skill position players that go in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. And Josh Heupel defended his track record on preparing players for the NFL, saying, quote, man, like 10 years ago, I think there was a trickle-down effect from the NFL to college. I think it's the exact opposite in today's landscape. Over the last 3 cycles or 3 drafts, we've had 5 wide receivers selected. I've had more wide receivers drafted in the last 3 years than any college coach. I think that speaks to what we're doing, how we're developing those players, those guys understanding coverages concepts, but also how to beat man coverage. That can be press, that can be off technique. That doesn't just happen by accident. So I think what we do does translate in how those guys have been developed. The offense gimmicky. I'll just ask you that question flat out. Caleb Calhoun, what say you?
It's not gimmicky the way a Mike Leach offense is or anything like that. It's a little gimmicky, though. And Josh Heupel can take offense to that, but it's a little gimmicky in the sense of it's a scheme that hasn't been figured out, which kudos to Josh Heupel that it hasn't figured out, but it schemes receivers to be wide open downfield. And when I think gimmicky, I'm thinking, okay, these receivers are getting open partially because of their speed, but they're not getting open because they're just that much more talented than every other receiver in college football. They're getting that open because Josh Heupel is scheming them open in a pretty simplistic way that honestly nobody can figure out yet. And I want to bring this up with Josh. A lot of respect. I think it's great for the college game. Josh is adaptable. It's not like he's 3 plays and it's not like the triple option where you either hand it to the fullback, you pitch it, or you throw it. It's not that. But yeah, he's had 5 receivers taken in the NFL draft the past 3 years. The first one that he's talking about was 2021. 2 UCF receivers, Jacob Harris and Trey Nixon, have been taken. Combined, they have 1 catch for 6 yards in 3 years in the pros. Or 2 years in the pros. So we can call it, we can say that it's not gimmicky like Mike Leach, but and he can talk about his receivers getting drafted. We kind of need to see them actually produce in the NFL, though.
That's fair. Mike Leach is, first of all, college football is somewhat gimmicky right now. I was talking with a former coach that said they bastardized the rules. Can I say that on the YouTube? They bastardized the rules in order to get more scoring. What does that mean? That means offensive linemen and RPOs are allowed more freedom to go further downfield, and it puts really the defense in a strain. So college football is gimmicky to some extent. Josh Heupel is taking advantage of that. And I love what you brought up as far as figuring it out. And we had Billy Bob on the message board bring up Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly's offense was ahead of the curve. It was eventually figured out. The triple option was ahead of the curve way back when, before we were all born, and it was eventually figured out.
They changed the rules and put cut blocks in and banned cut blocks. That's why the triple option fell out.
Right. The run and shoot was, you could call it gimmicky. Eventually, we saw that it wasn't the answer to offensive woes. So is it gimmicky? No, I think it's taken advantage of some gimmicky rules in terms of offensive linemen, and it might not be figured out for a decade. All of the offenses that I mentioned, including Chip Kelly, they weren't figured out for double-digit years, Caleb. So even if it is, who cares? I mean, gimmicky almost sounds like a shot. Gimmicky, though, is about this close. And for you on our YouTube channel, I'm holding my forefinger and my thumb about an inch apart. Gimmicky is about that close to innovative. So, I mean, translate that into innovative, and suddenly you should be sky high on Josh Heupel. I don't care what term you use. He's taken advantage of the system as it is. And unless rules change, like shift in baseball, unless the rules change, he's going to continue to take advantage of that and be very happy that you have that coach taking advantage of it, Caleb. So this to me is a lot of talk about, quite frankly, not much of anything, because USC, Southern California, is running that type of offense. Oklahoma is trying to run that type of offense. TCU, not exactly the same. I don't mean this as a shot at the late Mike Leach. His offense was truly gimmicky, and they were going to do what they did regardless of the rules, regardless of the success level of it. Josh Heupel has evolved his offense to this point, and I believe he could evolve it if the rules changed. So you want to call it gimmicky? I don't care. It just doesn't make a big difference to me. I think that this offense is incredibly productive, and I think it will be incredibly productive for at least 5 to 8 years. And unless there's a rules change specifically to the offensive lineman in the RPO game, I think they're fine. Also, this offense is solid in the run game, which that doesn't sound gimmicky to me, Caleb.
Yeah, I agree. The underrated part of this offense that we always talk about is there's so much balance. I think when we talk about gimmicks with offenses, when you go through history, here's the mark of whether or not it can an offense be gimmicky. Yes, that doesn't mean the coach running the offense is gimmicky, but you're right. Rest in peace, Mike Leach. He was gimmicky in the sense that, like you said, he stuck to his guns no matter what. Josh Heupel, we're talking about already. They're talking about tailoring their game plan a little bit this year for Joe Milton as opposed to what Hendon Hooker did last year. They changed up what they did in the Orange Bowl with Joe Milton versus what they were doing all year with Hendon Hooker. So they do tailor to their personnel, which makes it not as gimmicky. And the other mark of a great coach, I guess you should say, is when their offense is figured out, can they adapt? I just talked about how the cut block really, the ban on cut blocks really, no pun intended, cut the legs out from under the triple option. You know what Tom Osborne did? He adapted and still was able to run that thing for 15 to 20 years and win 3 national titles because he recruited the right players to do it. We talk about how John Chavis told you that everybody had figured out Steve Spurrier by 1999. You know what Spurrier did? He went to South Carolina, completely changed his offense, and had probably the best 10-year run any coach has ever had at South Carolina or ever will have at South Carolina. Sorry, Gamecock fans.
No, I agree. John with a great point. So he posted the definition of gimmick. Gimmick is, so I'm going to change my stance just a little bit. The definition of gimmick, thank you, John, for the purpose of attracting attention and that has no other purpose or value. Of course it has purpose and value, John says. It does. So if that's, I didn't know that was the exact definition of gimmick, but if that's the exact definition of gimmick, then I'm saying H to the double no, that it's not a gimmick. It's innovative. So my stance is firmly, absolutely not given that definition. Again, we love the message board. Given that definition, which I didn't look up, no, it's absolutely not gimmicky.
Well, given that definition, though, because I don't think we ever used it in that way, because given that definition, no offense is gimmicky because every coach runs an offense because they're trying to win. I mean, it's not like they're doing it for attention.
Well, no, but he said for the purpose of attracting attention. So,
yeah, I know. I don't think every coach runs an offense just to attract attention. I think every coach runs an offense because they're trying to win with that offense.
Right. So by that definition, no offense is gimmicky because nobody's going out there to attract attention. That's something you would do in the XFL.
Right.
And the definition that he posted has no other purpose or value. Well, it has purpose to score. It has value, 11 games last year. The other thing that I found really interesting is in his quote, he talked about the trickle down and trickle up. There's been a trickle up going from high school to college to the NFL for years. I used to cover a ton of high school football games, and I'm telling you, everybody, especially in Kentucky for some reason, everybody ran Hal Mumme and Mike Leach's old offense. They ran the spread, they ran tempo, they did all these things, and it somewhat trickled up to college. Trickled up, trickled down. Goes both ways. It's oversimplifying it to say it just goes one way at one particular time. But Caleb, this is an offense that is somewhat run, at least by the Arizona Cardinals in the NFL. And this is, if you look at the NFL, they're the Philadelphia Eagles. There are the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm not saying they're running an offense, the same offense as Heupel, but they are running innovative offenses. At the end of the day, there is not really a pro-style offense anymore because I think that coaches are less afraid to do things that are a little bit different. That's not gimmicky.
Yeah, it's the pro style is relative. I still think there is one, but there's no need to there's no need to have to expand your playbook to such lengths when you can get because another one, the Ravens, when you can get a Lamar Jackson, tailor the offense to him in the NFL and run a perfect system. A Josh Allen, again, 20 years ago, Josh Allen would never have been an NFL quarterback. He wasn't accurate, not the best decision maker. We might be talking about him as, if not for Patrick Mahomes, he might be the best quarterback in the NFL now. And so that is where things have changed a lot. The only thing I would say with Heupel, and yes, by the definition of gimmick, no coach is gimmicky. I don't think college football fans or analysts or ourselves use the term gimmicky in that way. We use the term gimmicky as we mean it something a little bit different. Maybe lack of development, more about just pure scheme and not actually tailoring it to players or responding to defenses or things like that. That's what I would think with gimmicky. I would say in that case, it's a little bit, only because, again, from the UCF days, we haven't seen a Heupel offensive player shine in the NFL just yet. I think that's going to change, but we still haven't seen one yet. Velus Jones Jr. has had the most production of any Heupel receiver in the NFL, and he might see more next year. But so we have to wait and see what happens. Because remember, they're not like, remember Nebraska in the 90s? Or actually, I'll even say it, the fun and gun. The reason we all called the fun and gun gimmicky was because no Florida quarterback ever made it in the NFL. And not only did they not make it in the NFL, we all knew they weren't going to make it in the NFL. Shane Matthews wasn't even drafted.
And I'll add to that, Spurrier, nobody else could run it. Nobody else ran the fun and gun. So if you want to call that gimmicky, you can. I'm going to use the word innovative, and I'm going to reach out to everyone on the message board to go ahead and pick. Tell me what you ultimately think of this offense. Pick an adjective. I'm going to go innovative and no to a gimmicky. Let me throw it at you, Caleb, if you need a second. Pick an adjective to describe this offense other than
I'm with you on
innovative. I took that.
Well, okay, I can't use innovative, but I mean, like, all forms of innovative, like all gimmicky offenses we're talking about were innovative at a time. I mean, heck, when Robert Nalen brought the single wing to Tennessee in 1926, that was innovative. That was not a thing. And then Tennessee stuck with it, and it fell out of favor in the 60s. And what does Doug Dickey do? He comes in and brings back the T formation, which, by the way, for those who don't know, the T was the original formation, like the oldest style of offense in college football. And Doug Dickey, it came back and became fashionable again in the 60s. So, I mean, can I say fashionable?
I like fashionable. I like that. D says versatile. I think I like that one a lot. Travis says ingenious. I like that as well. And Rebecca says, what will they call us when we do have players in the NFL that are successful? So that is the next step. But in the end of the day, it's nice watching Jason Witten and the late Reggie White have success in the NFL. But ultimately, what do you care most about? You care most about what they do in college, right?
Yeah, but we've talked about this. To keep getting the personnel you need the success in the NFL if you're going to compete with the Georgias and the LSUs.
I agree with that. J Max says electric, traditional, innovative, and exciting. So we'll roll with all those.